For the Australian viewers, I should point out that South Asian in English terms means Pakistan, Bangladesh and India. Esther, in Australia, similar numbers, statistics have been very, very rarely released. We're told it would be racist or divisive if it was. If you said, oh, that group, that's enabled, of course, as I've pointed out over the years, police forces, particularly in Victoria, and politicians to lie about the lack of evidence that certain racial groups are more likely to commit crime than others. Is this point about these statistics being racist and divisive, has that been made in Britain? Why is Labor doing it anyway?
It has certainly been made in Britain. I mean, you'll not be surprised that one of the most disgusting quasi-defences of the Pakistani grooming gangs here in Britain has been many from people of the left saying, oh, but white people are still more likely to be part of grooming gangs. Yes, because Britain is a Northern European country and white people still make up about 90% of the population. There's no reason for one group from South Asia to be overrepresented in orders of magnitude in a heinous crime, which involves the underage abuse and rape, gang rape of literally children. Right. And so they try and use this discourse to try and skew the figures. But the reality is, if certain groups are overrepresented in certain crimes, the onus is on society to look at that. But because that's an uncomfortable conversation, because they're going to be asking the government, why are we seeing this overrepresentation of particular groups in particular crimes? What are you doing about it? Why have we had an influx of people from certain parts of the world that seem to account for most of, for example, Islamist radical extremism and terrorism in this country? Then that's an uncomfortable conversation for the government to have, because then they would have to admit that they've had virtually no oversight, that the weak immigration laws have allowed for chain immigration from parts of the country whose values are fundamentally incompatible with the British public, and that the British authorities don't have the teeth to really nip it in the bud. I mean, there's been so many cases of people that have been referred to the PREVENT program, which is Britain's anti-terrorism program led by the Metropolitan Police. And they seem to pop up. The Manchester bombings individual, him and his brother were referred to PREVENT, and they were still allowed to carry out those attacks. Axel Rudikabana, the Southport killer, Abdul Azidi, who was not even allowed to sit in a church by himself and had been denied asylum 3 times, an Afghan national who was not allowed to return back home because, he suddenly converted to Christianity from Islam. These are all people that were on the radars of our authorities, and yet nothing was done. So these are the kinds of things that will show how incompetent our government and public authorities have been in keeping the British public safe.
And of course, it will force a radical rethink about immigration policies from which part of the world, and it'll talk, people will talk more about cultural compatibility, which is just such a no-go zone at the moment, and I think suicidally so. Esther Krakue, always great to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time.